Okay, we're sitting right at 6:05, so we're going to get started. We may have more people join us as we go along. We do have over 50 people for our event today. So first and foremost, I'd like to welcome you all to our Leading Edge program for early childhood development, hosted by yours truly, the East Colorado Small Business Development Center. Just to give you a little bit of information about who we are, my name is Lisa Hudson. I'm the director of the East Colorado Small Business Development Center, and we are part of a statewide and actually national program, the Small Business Development Center Network. And our mission is to help existing and new businesses grow and prosper, and in many cases this year, survive. We offer three main services: no cost confidential consulting, business workshops and programs like tonight, and helping connect you to the resources that you need. We'd like to take a couple minutes just to thank our partner, Early Childhood Council Leadership and Alliance. This is the reason why we're able to put this program on at no cost to our attendees, and we are so glad to partner with them and host this educational opportunity for everyone tonight. So thank you to the Early Childhood Council Leadership Alliance. Just a few housekeeping things. So webinars are obviously better when you participate. So a few things, if you've never used Zoom before, you'll notice if you go to the bottom of your screen, a black bar will pop up, and that's how you can mute and unmute yourself, start and stop your video. The chat function is there. And if you're interested in speaking, if you will just go to that reactions button and raise your hand. So I'm doing that with mine right now. That'll say that, okay, we know that someone wants to speak, and then go ahead and unmute yourself. But we really want you to utilize that chat function. And if you'd like, go ahead and try it out now, and you can say hello to the group. And if you're not speaking, please do keep your microphone muted, so that way we can make sure everyone can hear everybody okay. Next slide. All right, like I said, we have a full night tonight. So week one, our outline is going to be about the business model canvas presentation. We're going to talk about pandemic fatigue and COVID regulations. We're going to talk about some of the outcomes from tonight and how to identify and cope with pandemic. And then at the end of tonight, we're going to talk about things that we'd like to see going into next week. You're going to get some homework, if you will, after tonight's session, and then an opportunity to meet with your consultant one-on-one. And if you are utilizing this as part of your professional development credits that you're looking to earn, you do have to meet with that consultant each week for a minimum of 30 minutes. And the consultants will contact you by email after tonight. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Jen Negley. She is a consultant for the East Coast SBDC. She joined us in 2014. She assists small business owners in Northern Colorado with startup and growth of their businesses. Jen, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Welcome. Thank you, Lisa. So we're going to do a quick handoff. Please bear with us, everybody, as we switch screens for the presenters. On here, share. Okay, so as Lisa said, welcome. We're very excited to have all of you here for this presentation. We really want to start off this series talking about strategy and really the big picture for your business. We know that all businesses, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, have gone through some pretty major changes. And the child care industry in particular is so important to the economy and these parents that are working and providing those services. But the rough kind of changes, the quick things that have been happening and challenges may have made us more reactionary than necessarily strategic in our planning going forward. And so that's where we want to take a step back tonight and really think about that. So with it, and let me pull this. We're going to get started. Tonight, as we're talking about with the big picture, we're going to present one tool that we like to use with startups, but also existing businesses when we're looking at that business strategy. And with this tool, which is called the Business Model Canvas, one of the great things about it is that it's visual, it's flexible, and it's quick, because I think that's something that we all like to see. We don't want to be too bogged down in our Word documents and details that we can't be seeing the full picture moving forward. So with that, the outcomes for tonight's presentation is really to understand what a business model is, also understand what are the primary components of a business model, and finally, what resources are available to help you develop your business model. So starting out, I'm going to have a quick question for everyone in the chat and just ask, when I say business model, what sort of things come to mind, or what does that mean to you? And Andrew, due to my display settings, I'm going to let you read off those chat notes for me. If you could please moderate those.
Amy says goals.
Goals.
A business model should be continually viewed. From Tiffany, goals and plans. For me, it means what I want my business to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Business needs such as financials, record keeping, advertising, etc. Planning, a lot of planning. How to set up your business to succeed. Marketing, financial 90 days out, and more.
Yeah.
What I want to see my business become. Quality improvement plans, and a school calendar.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Fantastic. So with that, really when we talk about the business model, it includes all of those things that were mentioned. What we're looking at here is a comprehensive story for how the business is going to make money and be successful. So all of those things that we're mentioning when it comes to the financials, the short-term versus long-term planning, the vision for the business, the goals, the marketing, all of that is a part of the business model. But what we're looking here is what's the bones of the business, and how are we going to actually make money and successfully own and operate the business. So right now on the screen, you should be able to see what the business model canvas, and this is going to be a short kind of peek at it as we dive in further. As you can see, there's basically 9 key components that every successful business model has. And that's what we're going to go through tonight, and let you take some time to also consider how your business model fits into this, and maybe what areas might need a little bit of support going forward, or maybe a little bit of new direction. So with that, to give you an idea of how tonight's going to go with this presentation, is that it is going to be interactive. And it's going to give you the opportunity to think about how these concepts and these components really relate to you and your operation. So starting out, we're just going to go over one of the components of the business model. I'll give you a short description and a few examples. After that, you're going to have 2 minutes to complete your own business model canvas. If we were in person, we'd be doing this on business model canvas boards, because it is intended to use sticky notes. However, for this purpose, we'll just use pen and paper. And then finally, after that, those 2 minutes, we're going to move on to the next business model component. So as I briefly mentioned, please grab a pen and paper and sticky notes, or sticky notes if you've got them available. If you don't, you're more than welcome to open up maybe just a Word document on your screen. Something to also consider is this is going to be pretty quick and a really high-level overview. So when you receive the documents after this presentation, I'd say just set a little bit of time aside this week to really consider these questions further and a little more in depth that you won't be able to tonight due to time constraints. And finally, this tool is meant for ideas. So please continue to fill it out as we go over this 4-week course. I can tell you every week there's probably going to be a few gems of either resources or potential partners or financial resources, tips for operations that you can incorporate into this business model canvas going forward. So we want you to be able to capture those and use it with that. Something to also consider before we get started is fact versus assumption. So one of the things I've recognized with some of the clients that I've used this business model for is they tend to want to put down what they absolutely know. It is completely okay to put assumptions down when we're talking about this. This tool is really meant for ideas going forward. We want to put out all the ideas, every option available to us on the canvas, and then from there we can start doing our research, start having some of those conversations with our partners, our management partners, and skim them down. But right now we just want to give ourselves the opportunity to identify every opportunity for the business and the direction we want to go. So with that, let's dive into the 9 components, and have to do a quick switch here with my screen. Okay, so going back to the business model canvas, we're going to jump into one of the very first segments, which is the customer segments or user type. What you'll see is, I'll give you some examples on the middle of the screen, and then over to the right, we're going to see some questions and a bit of an explanation. So you can always refer back to there when you have that 2-minute timeline that you're going to be working on. So for this section, what we really want to identify is who is that ideal market. And I know based on the registration that we have people here that are from rural territories. We have some child care centers who maybe have some religious affiliations, some maybe we have some of them that are focused on early education achievement for it. So what you're really wanting to identify with your business in this is who is that ideal target market. And we can say parents, but what we want to do is get as specific as possible. So just to throw some quick ideas on here. Maybe if you're in a rural area, you'd say rural parents, and you know that you have a high percentage that are maybe low or middle income, and just due to the lack of competition in the area and the need that you can have people drive within 30 minutes. So that gives you some data that now we can look at and we can dive in a little bit further. Maybe you're in a more urban area and you've decided to specialize in some way. So maybe in here you're saying we have some we pride ourselves in our curriculum and the high education level of our teachers. So for our target market, we are really targeting parents with income of greater than $100,000 household income, and within a 20-minute drive or a 15-minute drive. And maybe their focus is on, they have a higher focus on the education. It's not just childcare for them. They really want to see certain types of education in the classroom with their kids with it. So what we're going to do here is give you about 2 minutes to start thinking of what is that ideal target market. And one thing that you can also identify is maybe you found that there's 2 particular groups that you can target. There's a primary customer segment and there's a secondary one. Now, if you really know your customer segment, and you don't need that 2 minutes to really be considering those, to identify your customer segment, I'd say please use this time to think a little bit more about those parents and maybe how their needs have changed. So over to the side, there's a quick empathy map, and some questions that you can ask yourself are, what are parents saying? Has that changed in the last 6 months? Are we having a bit of different conversation? What are those things? What sort of actions are parents taking? Have they shared certain feelings or thoughts with us? Has there been a greater need potentially for expanded hours? due to change in the parents' daily lives, those sort of things. So as I said, we're going to take about 2 minutes for you to just identify this customer segment and also what changes you're seeing in that segment, or maybe what questions you need answered through further market research. And if you do happen to have a question, I am looking at the chat, so feel free to do that there. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a little bit of time to consider maybe who you'd like to target that you haven't been able to up until this point, or if it's the same and maybe some further information. I'm going to take a little pause here and let you know that as part of this course, we will be pulling 2 market research reports for every attendee. One of those reports is going to be a bit of a demographics report based on drive time. So you'll be sent a survey link where you can say that we want to know what are the demographics based on 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can change those times, and that will come back with the number of people, their income level, broken down by income level, broken down by age group, so you can get a better idea of the number of kids in your territory, and as well as some psychodemographics. And then the other one will be some psychodemographics data based on the customer segment that you have outlined. So if this is young families, if this is rural families, families with higher incomes, you'll be able to determine that, and we'll be pulling one of those reports that you'll receive in the week 4 as part of the marketing segment that we're going to be doing. So based on that, we'll jump on to the next part of the business model canvas, which is the value proposition. And one reason we start with those customer segments is the value proposition needs to be tailored towards those customer segments, because different customers put different emphasis or weights on different value propositions. And so this might, you might have heard this be called your elevator pitch for it, but basically all it is identifying what you're doing for the customers and what sets you apart. And realistically, when you're talking to somebody who's, say, a new parent that's interested in your services, and maybe they're looking on your website, maybe they're actually called into your child care center and they're asking questions, they're probably not going to come away with more than 2 or 3 things that they're going to really remember. So we want to identify what are those 2 or 3 things that set you apart from your competitors that you want to make sure that you are messaging into your interactions and into your marketing that is really going to be sticky in your customers' minds. So a few examples of different types of value propositions may be performance, it may be some sort of customization of your service, it may be getting the job done, it might be the design, it might be a brand or a status type of thing, it might be price point and cost reduction, it might be risk reduction, it might be the accessibility. Convenience might be another factor. And those are just some examples. There's many more that you can be identifying. So that's what we're going to do right now is based on those customer segments that you've identified, think about what are the top factors that really are important to that particular group. And a few questions, as I said, are available on the right side of your screen that you can be thinking through as you're taking this time are going to be, what value do we deliver to our customers? Which one of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? Which customer needs are we satisfying? And what distinct mix of elements do we offer that will cater to the segment's needs? So as I said before, a few examples may be cost. If you're in an area that maybe doesn't have easy access to childcare, and so you focused your services on providing quality care at the most affordable price, it might be something along the lines of accessibility. So maybe you have more expanded hours than the typical competitor because you want to make sure that you're as flexible as possible for parents who may not work that 8 to 5 job. So with that, we'll give you another 2 minutes to kind of write down your thoughts on this.
Hey, Jen, we got a question from the group here.
Yes.
Questions for the value proposition. What value do we deliver
Those are
to
just
the...
mine, Andrew. I was just typing in the questions that
Oh,
were on the
sorry
side of
about
the
that.
screen.
My apologies.
No problem.
Okay. So with that, we'll just move on to the next component of a business model. And this is going to be your channels. Some things that we're looking at with channels is how will your customers learn about you, and how do you interact with them? So a few questions that we're going to be considering here when we're talking about the channels, delivery channels, is through which delivery channel do our customer segments want to be reached? How are channels integrated? Which channels work best? Which ones are the most cost efficient? And how are we integrating these with the customer routines for it? And one way to think about the delivery channels is to consider the 5 phases of a delivery channel. And the first is going to be awareness. How do we raise awareness about our company's products and services? So let's use the example of maybe we're trying to reach younger families. Maybe younger families spend more time on online social media, so we know that that's going to be one of the key factors in raising awareness about the services. I do believe we have a few schools that are focused on different types of religious affiliations. So maybe for that type of childcare service, a key area of the awareness is networking with local churches. The next phase of a channel is going to be evaluation. And so this actually ties back to what we were just doing with the value proposition. So we've raised awareness. This parent that is aware that our center is out there. How are they going to evaluate us when they go online and they're looking at us and they're looking at our competitor? What sort of things are they going to be considering? Are they going to be considering price? Are they going to be considering the curriculum? Are they going to be considering our staff? Are they going to be considering the location? Those sort of things. So we have to make the evaluation part of the channel very easy for them, making sure that we're conveying that so that they can compare us and hopefully see it favorably in comparison to maybe competitors. The next phase of the channel is going to be purchase. So questions we're asking here are, how do we allow customers to purchase specific products and services? This may be something along the lines of, maybe your center has been around for a little while and you're used to taking cash and check for it, but you haven't moved on to maybe on the online automatic payment options. And that's something that maybe at this point with COVID, people are more comfortable with, and you want to leave as an option for your customers if they find that preferable. After that, we're going to be looking at the delivery of the services. How do we deliver the value proposition to the customers? And that's, of course, going to be working with the children, but that's going to be your interactions with the parents as well, when they drop off the kids, when they pick up the kids. What does that look like? And do you, as a center director, have the same thought about those delivery of services as your entire staff does? Is there a consistency there? And then the final phase of a delivery channel is going to be the after sales for it. And so this is going to be, how do you provide post-purchase customer support? So this may be thinking about things along the lines of what sort of information do you need to be sharing with parents, what kind of continuing sort of communications in terms of email, text, those sort of things need to be shared with them. So that's what we're looking at here, is who do we really need to be communicating with? What are we trying to communicate to them, and which medium or type of communication are we trying to communicate? So once again, just some of those questions to be considering is, which channels our customer segments want to be reached? How are channels integrated? Which channels work best? What are most cost efficient? And how are we integrating them with the customer routines? And so with that, we'll give you another 2 minutes to think about how this works in your operation, and maybe what you would really like to be able to provide for your customers in terms of delivery channels. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick pause here and just check in with all the attendees, because what I kind of realized is that I have a nice large screen at home. And so the questions I have along the side may be very easy for me to see, but it may not be as easy on your screens. So I just want to ask a quick question that hopefully you can just answer in the chat. Would you like me to include the information along the side of the screen with these questions in the chat box? Would that be easier for you when you're working on this on your own time during that 2-minute session? So I'm going to jump into the next channel, but if that is going to be better, it's looking like a lot of yeses here. Okay, so I'll do that on the next section so that it's hopefully a little bit easier. So jumping on to the next component of the business model, and this is going to be your customer relationships. And part of this is going to really be identifying, based on your customer segment, what type of relationships do your customers expect you to have with them. So thinking about this would be how costly each type of customer relationship is, and how our customer relationships integrated with the rest of our business model. And so here, when we're talking about customer relationships, this can be thinking about things along how much time do parents want us to be spending sharing information about maybe the kids and their days, what form of customer relationships they want to have. Do you have a lot of parents that want to have that delivered face-to-face directly from a teacher, or is this something that can be sent through more of an email communication, a text communication, something along those lines? And then finally, a factor is going to be the cost of that communication schedule. How much time can you dedicate to that type of customer relationship, or what's the expense if you are going to integrate another type of communication system? So I'm going to copy this really fast into the chat for everyone so that they can have those questions. But once again, this one's going to be a little bit short. What type of relationships do your customers expect you to have with them? How costly are those customer relationships? And how are customer relationships integrated with the rest of the business model? That's what we're going to be looking at. So here, and you'll be able to see that in the chat. But we'll go ahead and start those 2 minutes. I apologize. You should be able to see them in the chat now. I apparently sent a private message earlier. So thank you for all your patience. I thought I had this technology down, but still stuff to learn. Great. So I know that was pretty quick, but hopefully that gave you a little bit of idea, and maybe some thoughts on how you can change some of those things to be more adaptive to that customer segment. So moving on to the next part, and being a business, I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on this one, because this, of course, is what keeps everybody in operation and going, which is going to be the revenue streams. How does our business make a profit? And I'm going to say a little bit of a caveat here too, is if you are a nonprofit childcare center, I'd encourage you to still think of yourself as a business. I know sometimes that that's not the case with nonprofits, but at the end of the day, you still need to be bringing in the money to keeping the services going. And so that's what we're that's the lens that we're going to look at this through. With this particular component of a business model, we're really just asking, like I said, that main core question: how is your business going to make a profit? And so this goes back to the value proposition. What value are customers really willing to pay for? What types of services will they put a premium on? What do they currently pay for? How are they currently paying? How would they prefer to pay? How much does each revenue stream contribute to the overall revenues for it? So things that you might be considering here is maybe your child care center does not necessarily provide infant child care room, and that's an option that you're playing back and forth in is this really something that I want to be integrating into my child care service? And so some of the questions that you might play around with on this revenue stream is, what would be a cost of that room if we can fill it up? Maybe we can charge more for our services because there's fewer available in our territory and there's a market need, but it's also going to be more costly. So what would be the revenue that we could bring in per room? Another question on this might be, maybe you are looking to grow your business or your childcare services, and you have an extra room, but you're not quite sure yet if you are able to fill it up with the age range that you currently offer. But during the summer time, you know that there's a lot of older siblings that need childcare. Can we open that up during the summer? And the ratio is more favorable, or maybe that room is going to be more profitable during that time period because there's going to be fewer teachers to a student ratio. So these are the sort of things that we're going to be playing around with. Like I said before, maybe there's certain hours that you can change that you can charge more for. Maybe other types of curriculum or add-on services for it. And so here's just that opportunity to start really considering what revenue streams are even possible for it, and also taking a really close look at your current makeup of your revenue streams. And next week, we're actually going to have a presenter, Jessie Esparza, that's going to go into this in more depth. So right now, we just wanted to really consider kind of the big picture on these before we get into the nitty-gritty details. So with that, just reiterating those questions: how will your business make a profit? For what value are your customers really willing to pay? What do they currently pay? How are they currently paying? And how would they prefer to pay? And how much does each revenue stream contribute to the overall revenues? So we'll start that timeline, and then the questions will be available in the chat box. questions. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the next business model component, which is going to be key partners for it. And so with the key partners, we're really identifying who you want to create alliances with to really optimize the business model. And when we're talking about partners, we're going to be identifying a few questions here. Who are our key partners? Who are our key suppliers? Which key resources are we acquiring from our partners? And which key activities do our partners perform? So when we're talking about partnerships, what you'll see on the screen are 4 categories of partnerships. There's the strategic, the cooperation, the joint venture, and the buyer-supplier. The buyer-supplier is probably the easiest one that most businesses are working with. It's just saying that we obtain resources from a buyer. So this may be the supplier that you purchase your cleaning equipment from for it. This might be somebody where you get your curriculum from. That would be a buyer-supplier relationship. Now there's also the strategic alliances. And with that, it might be between 2 non-competitors. And so what we're looking at here might be something like the relationship between your child care center and the early child care and the child care councils with it, in that you're not you're not necessarily competitors, but you both have the intention to increase the availability of child care services, so that there's an alliance there where you can share resources between the 2. Cooperation is going to be another type of partnership. And this tends to be between businesses that actually are in competition with each other. A way to consider this might be a trade organization for child care centers, and there might be something in terms of a strategic buying partnership among centers. That would be something that would fall under the cooperation type of partnership. And then finally would be a joint venture partnership, which would be where 2 partners go in and actually develop a new business. This might be something along the lines of maybe there's a existing child care center, and then there's a school district, and they realize that there's an area that's being underserved, and they go in together as a joint partnership for a new center to serve that area. That would be an example of that. And so what we're really wanting to identify here are, who are those partners? This could also be somebody along the line of a marketing partner. Are you tied very closely with different types of your local chamber of commerce? That might be a key partner for your operation. Another partner that you might be considering is somebody that you outsource some of the services. So maybe you've been doing your marketing internally, and you've realized that it's been very hard to keep or identify really good talent, because you've just recognized that you're asking somebody to not only be a teacher but also be a marketer, and in which case maybe instead you outsource that particular service to a marketing firm, or somebody that you can bring on part-time to provide your marketing and let you focus on maybe the operations and the actual services themselves. Another type of relationship might be like your accountant. That's going to be a key partner for it. Another one that you might be identifying at this point is an HR partner. If you have quite a bit of staff in your center, there's been a lot of changes happening in terms of the regulations. And so maybe you just recognize that for the legal liability sake, you want to have somebody that you know you can call on to help and assist with those services. And that's just going to be another plug-in actually for week 3. We're going to have some really wonderful people talking about different HR concerns. So with that, just going back and reiterating those questions that we're answering, which is who will you create alliances with to optimize your business model? Who are our key partners? Who are our key suppliers? Which key resources are we acquiring from our partners? And which key activities do our partners perform? And so we'll start that time and then put those questions in the chat box. The other thing that I'll just plug in very quickly is this is something that I think what you'll find is you'll have a lot of notes from these 4 sessions where you'll be able to maybe identify some partners that you didn't recognize before. So we'll start China. Okay, so hopefully that gave you enough time to get some good brainstorming going on in terms of the partnerships and what opportunities are out there for your center. We're going to jump into the next business model component, which is going to be the key activities. So this is really looking at what are the most important things your company must do to make the business work. And this is kind of built around that philosophy of 20% of your work really produces 80% of the output for it. And so we're saying, what are those key areas that we absolutely have to be focused on? Questions that we're going to be thinking about or considering in this section are, what key activities do our value propositions require? What key activities do our distribution channels require? What key activities do our customer relationships require? And what key activities do our revenue streams require? And on the screen, what you'll see is actually 3 different categories of key activities, which were just identified with this particular tool. One is production. These activities really are talking more about designing and making and delivering a product or a product. So typically you'll see manufacturing is pretty heavy in this area. For childcare providers, this might be something along maybe the food that you're providing, if you're snacks and lunches, those sort of things. Problem solving is usually a key area for any business that is primarily based on services. And this is really relating to coming up with new solutions or individual customized solutions to the customer's problems. And then the platform network is something that's not really relevant to our discussion tonight. That's based around businesses that are more along the lines of an Amazon, eBay, that sort of thing, where all their services and their goods are really circled around a platform for it. But something I recommend here considering is that, of course, the key activity is going to be working with the children themselves. But other things might be in terms of the billing and accounting of a childcare provider. Cash flow for all small businesses can be a challenge, and so getting money from parents, maybe that's something that you just realize could be improved upon in your center. And so that is a key activity that we need to be considering. What are strategies that we can build upon to make sure that this is optimized for just the best way possible going forward. Other activities may be around marketing and communications with the parents. Maybe other things, once again, in these last few months with all the challenges and the changes going on, we may have become pretty reactionary in the business. So how do we make sure that we identify those activities and be more proactive about them so that you do have those communications and those marketing going out, so that you do have a good slate of students that are going to be coming into your class next year as children age out of the different age groups. So with that, just going back to those questions before, what key activities do our value propositions require? What key activities do our distribution channels require? What key activities do our customer relationships require? And what activities do our revenue streams require? We'll start that time and then put those questions in the chat. Okay, so with that, before we jump into the next section, I'll be really honest with you. I'm used to doing this in person, so I'm finding it a little eerily quiet without that face-to-face interaction. So I'm just going to ask, since everybody seems to be pretty tech savvy tonight, to put into the chat, what are some of those key activities that they identified as just priorities going forward that you think this is something that we want to improve upon? Especially with ideas from this class. So if anyone would like to share those in the chat. Or if you'd like to talk, I'm happy to have you unmute yourselves as well. Whichever is your preference. Parent communication, tuition, and parents is what Tiffany said. And payments, sorry. Parent communication and then tuition and payments. Yes, two areas I'm sure everyone probably feels an affinity for. Echo with Tiffany, Amber says. Yes. All right. Oh. Ways to communicate with the parents, consistent marketing and continuation, connecting with the families. Same as well, parent engagement and buy-in. effective marketing social media platform. Well, this is all exciting to hear because we've got some good stuff coming up for you in the upcoming weeks on some of these topics. So great to hear. Cost, staff costs, absolutely. Marketing, what sets us apart. So it sounds like a lot of the same sort of concerns that we're seeing among the group. There's a lot of them echoing each other on this. And along these lines, I'm also going to ask you to put into the chat, what current alliances are you working with as a center that maybe others may not be considering? So we're just going to go back to those key partners for a second and say, what kind of alliances or key partners are you considering that maybe you hadn't before COVID? Tiffany says, local businesses looking to support early childhood education. SBDC, definitely thumbs up for that, Tiffany. Let's see what else. United Way as a partner? Absolutely. Family Center, local school districts. Working with schools for remote learning. Absolutely, something that most people may not have considered before, but top of mind for a lot of parents now. New grantors. Yep, especially for the nonprofit centers. That makes a lot of sense for it. Okay. See if there's anybody else who, Colorado Shines, Denver preschool program. Are some other ideas that people have put down. Working with school food programs such as the CACFP to help with meals. Another great program. Early childhood mental health consultants. Oh, yep. I think parents and children, that's certainly something. Stress has been hitting them pretty hard, as well as staff. We're working with mental health for your staff as well. Local associations. Absolutely. I'm curious, Amber, if you have any more detail. Are you talking about like business associations or parent associations, all types of associations there? Right. All types. Yep. Chamber of Commerce. Yep. Fantastic. Well, thank you all for sharing. I think that will give everybody a few other ideas as well going forward. So moving on to the next business model component, we're going to jump into key resources for it. And as we're talking about resources, pretty self-explanatory, but we're really just considering what are the most important assets required to make the business model work. And questions that we're going to be asking ourselves are going to be, what key resources do our value propositions require? What key resources do our distribution channels require? What key resources do our customer relationships require? And what key resources do our revenue streams require? And on the screen, you'll see the four broad categories of resources when we're talking about a business. The first, of course, is going to be the physical. So the facilities, this might be equipment, buildings, machines, sales systems, those sort of things. Next is going to be the intellectual. And so property, this might be things like your brand for the business, proprietary knowledge, patents and copyrights, partnerships, your customer databases. That's an incredibly important resource for a business. Then we're jumping over to the human side of things. And so really, identifying your staff as a resource. So these can be the crucial knowledge of your staff. Maybe you realize that physical activity, there's an emphasis that parents are placing on maybe healthy eating and physical activity. So you want to make sure that you have somebody on staff that maybe specializes in that or has a lot of interest in it. And then financial is another one, that bucket that we're looking at when we're talking about key resources. And these can be things in terms of financial guarantees that you offer. These can be cash, lines of credits that the business needs to operate, stock options pool for hiring key employees for it, depending upon your business structure. And this might also be things like grants and other financial resources through organizations like United Way, Colorado Shines, that sort of thing. So here we're going to just take a little bit of time to really think of what are those key resources. And I'd have you consider if you're in business center, you're already in business as your child care center, you probably have a lot of these in place. So maybe now it's a focus on what key resources do we need to identify for procuring, or something that we'd like to work up to. Maybe it's not an immediate need right now, but we know that we need this resource in the future, and how do we get there if we don't maybe have the cash right now to get it. So with that, just jumping back to those questions once again, what are the key resources do you need for your value proposition? What key resources do the distribution channels require? For example, there maybe you need to be thinking about a really good email system for it, so that you can be sharing those communications with your parents and other partners. What key resources do our customer relationships require, and what key resources do our revenue streams require? So I'm going to give a little more time to this, because I just feel like when you're going through all those categories, it's going to take a little bit longer to think those through. And also, just to let you know, we'll be sharing some of these at the end as well. So give a little bit more time here, and then we'll move those questions into the chat. Okay. So based on those thoughts that you had a chance to jot down, if you want to put into the chat, what are some of the assets that you're really looking at and considering um, going forward? And we've got those categories of physical, intellectual, human, and financial, or assets that you'd like to see for to obtain for your particular center. Let's see. Quality staff, communication system, absolutely. Something that's effective and also usable. On it. Building expansion to add classrooms, exciting. Always like to see that for business growth. Acquire a new facility for school-age children. So we've got a couple people in the group that are looking at expansion options, which is very exciting. Let's see. Okay. Like opening a new center. Okay. Scholarship grants to keep tuition affordable for families and also allow us to pay a living wage. Yeah. One step up from the financials, tuition, and prospective parents board meetings. New facilities and grants. Absolutely. And one of the nice parts about this is that when you take these ideas and speak with your business consultant this week, they'll be able to help you come up with some strategies around them. So great. Thank you for everybody who contributed to the chat in the chat there. We're going to move on to the next part of the business model canvas, which is going to be the cost structure. So when we're looking at the cost structure, of course, it's how much will it cost to start and maintain the business or grow the business? And so here, the questions we're going to be asking are going to be, what are the most important costs inherent in our business model? Which key resources are most expensive? And which key activities are most expensive? And something to really consider here are basically the two types of cost structures. And we're looking at any type of business, there's two ways that you can decide to build your cost structure into your business model. The first is going to be cost driven, and a cost driven structure is going to be focused on minimizing the costs whenever possible, and it's really an approach that aims at creating and maintaining the leanest possible business model available while still providing that value proposition. Maximum automation here and extensive outsourcing of some of the activities going on in the business. And so this might be an approach that a center takes if they are focused on providing the service to maybe some lower income individuals that can't afford for other value propositions or add-ons. This might be the focus of, say, nonprofit centers. Then the other type of cost structure that you'll see is going to be value driven. And so once again, this shows you how all of these components really tie together nicely in the business model canvas, because here we're looking at not really as focused on the costs, but we're saying that what's the value that our customers are going to pay for. So it's really focused on that value because they know if they get the value there, that the clients and the customers are going to pay a premium for it. So with this one, you're concerned less with the cost implications with a particular business model, but instead on the value creation. Premium value propositions and high degree of personalization services are usually characterized in a value-driven business model, and a lot of customer support. So two very different approaches that centers can take depending upon who their customer segments are. So looking at the cost structure, we're going to be basically identifying in these three categories are, what do we need to finance going forward? We've really nailed in our customer group. We have a vision for where the center is going to be going, but what do we need in terms financing going forward. What are our expected costs for that? And what period of time are we looking at? I know that at least 4 or 5 of you identified some expansion growth opportunities that you're looking at in the future. So identifying what that time horizon is this something that's going to be in the next few months? Is this something over the next couple of years for it? So this is another area that takes, I think, a little bit more consideration. So we're going to have about 4 minutes on the clock to give you some time there. But once again, we're just saying what are the most important costs inherent in our business model, which key resources are the most expensive, what key activities are the most expensive, and looking at the financing going forward in terms of what needs to be financed, how much it's going to cost, and over what period of time. So we'll get that on the clock. Okay. So there's 2 people who joined us from the waiting room. I just wanted to let you know if you were one of the 2 that joined us, we're simply brainstorming and answering the questions that are on the screen in terms of cost structure of the business, how much will it cost to start and maintain and grow the business. So we're really looking at going forward what needs to be financed, how much it'll cost, and over what time period. So that's going to happen. We're going to let everybody brainstorm for about another minute and a half before we jump into the next part. Okay. So, if there's anything anyone would like to share in this question or in this particular session, love to have some interaction in the chat. Some of this may be more personal that you don't want to share, but maybe identifying what are some of the equipment or software, other needs that you've identified, especially in the last 6 months, that you'd like to be investing in going further for your center. We had one comment in terms of well-rounded software that's affordable, easy to use for the staff. Technology needs for parent communication. That seems to be something that's on everybody's mind going forward. Let's see. Interactive app for parents. Agreement with Tiffany on the technology needs for parent communication. Nice. Oh, location, ease of parking, aesthetics, long-term growth, COVID costs. Yep. On every business top of mind, definitely. Okay. So with that, we've gone over all 9 components of the business model canvas. As you can see them laid out pretty nicely here. What I'm gonna switch over to my PowerPoint really quick and do a few different wrap-up things in here, but really appreciate everyone's participation in this, and especially those who contributed during the chat. So now I'm going to open up the chat just for general questions or thoughts on this tool. None now. That's completely fine. Good to know that I covered it well. So going forward, just a few kind of credits and thank you for this tool. This was, a bit overwhelming. Nice to break into sections. Resources for ECE specific questions, examples were helpful. So Tiffany, if you could just say what ECE is, I apologize, my brain's not making the connection with that acronym right now, early childhood. Absolutely. So we are going to have a list of additional resources all throughout this course. If there are some resources that maybe are mentioned and we haven't provided you handouts on them, please email us directly and we'll make sure that we get those to you. But we do have some handouts and follow-up materials that we're going to be sharing with every attendee after each of the sessions for it. And part of them will be in terms of the business model canvas. What we're going to have here is going to be further printouts and those questions broken down so that you can take those and think about them a little bit later. The way you restated the questions to our field in specific was great. Well, thank you for that. And so with this, like I said, jumping into the credits, just a special thanks to the actual creators of this tool, which is Alexander Ostenwalger and Jers Pignier. These two authors actually developed a book, The Business Model Generation, which is where they shared this particular tool. And I know that I have gotten so much use out of it. And what's really wonderful is not only did they develop the book, so if you are really interested into diving into this tool more, I'd recommend checking that out. You can also go to their website, which is strategizer.com, and they have further free resources built around the business model canvas. So that's available as well. We also have some other business planning tools available on our website at eastcoloradospdc.com. So those are really great places on the web that you can check out a little bit further for more information. The other thing that I'll just make mention of is that this was very kind of quick. We gave you a couple minutes to be brainstorming yourselves, but that's one reason why we've made this course very interactive in the sense that we've paired you with consultants that you'll be meeting with each week, so that you can share some of these ideas with your consultants and brainstorm even further. So what I'd recommend is, once we send you the follow-up resources with these questions and the business model canvas itself, carving out a little bit of this time this week to maybe reevaluate and look at the answers that you've already put down, and see if there's something that has come to you during the week now that you've had some time, maybe mull over this a little bit further. I'd also encourage you to use this with your team. So if there's other people really critical to the management decisions in the business, having them take a fresh pair of eyes and look at it and say, are we both on the same page? Or maybe there are different opportunities that one partner recognized that the other didn't, and taking that time. So looking at our time here, one of the things that I'm going to point you to, a resource, is this website. That's bit.ly/Child Care Week 1 survey. And so I mentioned when we were in that first section about the customer segments that we are actually going to pull 2 market research reports for you. And what this survey is going to do is allow us to pull the information that you've identified for the customer segments that you really want to target in your center. So what I'll do here is just pull this up really quick to give you a sense of it. I know that we're going to be going into a break after this, so if you want to take just a few minutes to fill out these questions, there's only about 6 of them in here. But as you can see on the screen, the 2 reports that we're going to be pulling for you are going to be a GIS drive time analysis report. So what this does is it specifically targets the geographic area within a drive time of your business location. So this will include competitor mapping, annual customer expenditures, demographics, psychodemographics, and a thematic map based on a predetermined drive time from your business location. And we're allowing you to set that drive time. If you want 5, 10, 15 minutes, that's great. If you want to go out further and say, we think we can pull people from 30 minutes away, then we can pull that report as well. So as you can see, it's just going to be really simple questions: first, last name, address, the drive time that you're requesting, and then also going into the primary customer segments that you identified in your business model canvas. And you can choose up to 2. You are not required to do both of them. If you just want to identify one, that's completely okay. The other question that we're going to be asking you simply is if you'd like a business model canvas poster mailed to your office. And we have those available. And if you want to use this as it was kind of intended as that visual sticky note type of format, we'll be able to mail you one of those as part of this course if you'd like it. So with that, what we'll do is just, I believe, go straight into break. But I'm going to hand the mic over to Andrew once again in case I forgot anything else there.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. And just so you know, it seems like some of the attendees are having a little bit of trouble accessing that link. So would you just go ahead and make sure permissions are set for everyone to be able to access that?
Yeah.
Awesome. And as Jen mentioned, we are now going to take a quick 10-minute break. So get up, stretch your legs, go ahead and grab a snack. Please do not take a nap, and we will see you back here in 10 minutes for Michelle Sharp. I'll also be inputting a few poll questions as well, just to get some more information from the group, learn a little bit more about you and your center. So if you would like or have some free time during this 10 minutes, feel free to fill those out as well.
Great job, Jen.
Thanks.
Okay, everyone, it is approaching 10 minutes now. So if we can make our way back to the computer, we will get started with our second portion of tonight's webinar. We'll give people a couple minutes here just to float back. If I could see some signs of life in the chat, just so I know everybody's back in front of their screen and ready to rock and roll, that would be great.
Looks like we're getting some people back. Good deal.
Okay, great. Well, I want to introduce to everyone Michelle Sharp. So she was kind enough to volunteer her time for us this evening, and she's an early childhood council director for Logan, Phillips, and Sedgwick counties here in Colorado. And Michelle's also a local small business owner, so probably going through a lot of the things that you and your small business are currently going through. She's going to be talking with us today about pandemic fatigue and kind of how you can recognize that within your facility and how to deal with that. I'm sure there's been a number of changes that have happened within our childcare facilities throughout COVID. And so she's going to be going through some of those, how current businesses are working with those changes. And so without further ado, I will pass the torch here to Michelle and let her get going.
I guess it would help to unmute myself, huh?
that would help a little bit. I'm going to make you the host here, Michelle, and then you can share your screen when you're ready.
Awesome, thank you. So yes, I've been the executive director basically for the last 6 years of the Early Childhood Council of Logan, Phillips, and Sedgwick counties. I've been in the nonprofit sector though for the last 14 years, so I definitely understand nonprofits and stuff. And then I've owned my own business since 2012, so understanding the business side of everything, and that's a lot of what I bring into the world of the Early Childhood Council and supporting our providers and stuff is on the business side of everything. Tonight, I know when Andrew had reached out to me, he wanted me to talk a lot on COVID and what's going on with it. Everybody has, and I reached back out and I said, you know what, we've got a lot that's already been going on. We've been dealing with this since March, so I don't think there's a lot of new things to talk about, essentially. I did do a little bit, and I will share my screen. Let's see. So let me go. This is what I get for not. Hang on. Still learning how to do multiple tasks. Okay. Swap. There we go. And then okay. And it did it to me again. There we go. So like I said, we're going to talk about pandemic fatigue. I wanted to give some update on where everybody's at off of the roster that I received. So per our county data and the counties that I was seeing represented here today, most everybody is either at a level 2 or a level 3. Level 2 is safer at home, and so is level 3 safer at home. And Andrew, if you wouldn't mind, if you catch any questions and stuff, I would appreciate that in the chat. It's really kind of hard, and it took me a little bit of deciphering how to decide how they're coming up of how do you know that you're a level 1, how do you know that you're a level 2 or like a level 3, because I live and reside in Logan County and stuff. They moved us to a level 3, and I'm sitting there going, that makes no sense because our average is at 5.1 and they want us around 5% or lower. But because we've had approximately 2 hospitalizations every day for the last 2 weeks, that's what puts us at a level 3. So then like Larimer County is a level 1, but they have had declining days of 11 and they're down at that 6.5%. So it was really kind of weird because I'm like, this is like Common Core math. I'm not getting this. So how does this work, and how are they figuring out? Because when I was looking at this state and stuff and their data, I was like, okay, that's really weird. But I wanted to show you, I'm not sure if I can do it or not.
Hey, Michelle, we're
Yeah.
seeing the next slide preview screen instead of the full screen mode. There we go. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's weird because earlier it was vice versa.
Yeah, at first it was the full screen and then it swapped real quick, but we're good now. Thanks.
Okay. Well, and like I said, when we first started, I've got 3 monitors I'm working on. So it's like, which one am I seeing? So yeah. So the way I found this information out is I actually went out to 9news.com's website, and then they have a coronavirus, and you can link on that, and then that links to the state's data and everything. And you can actually see the county, the state, with the counties divided out, and they will, and then you can click on it and you can see where numbers and percentages and stuff like that are, and movement. So let's talk a little bit about pandemic fatigue. I had heard this on in a meeting here a couple of weeks ago about how we're fatigued and we're just, what are we doing? And everybody is so tired. We're tired of everything that's going on. We're tired of COVID. We're tired of the elections, which are going on today. And I'm sure people are trying to pay attention to it and learn and stuff like that tonight. And we're tired of riots, and we're tired of fires, and we're just tired. And so what does that look like? Are you feeling like this? Like you're in a glass case of emotion, and that's not sure what you're feeling like? So some of the things that you're going to feel is fear. It's very real that we would feel fear right now because we're not sure which way everything is going. People are being evacuated from their homes with fires and stuff. You're not sure if you own a business. Childcare, I don't think would be necessarily a targeted business, but it doesn't, rioters aren't really targeting anything specific. They're just targeting whatever is right there. So who knows? So there's fear going on, and we have fear of what does it look like if we're shut down yet again. Luckily, in the first round of this, before everything started, there was some help for our providers to get matched up as emergency providers. But what does that look like coming into the fall now and winter with the cold and flu mixing in with COVID? We've got anxiety going on. There's loneliness going on. We're isolated. We are not made to be isolated, and that we are very social creatures, and we need that input, and we need that coming back and forth from everybody. So loneliness is a huge part of that. And also feeling hopeless. What are we doing with that piece of it? So with fatigue, we all know we're just tired. Or like this little buddy, I was so thrilled that his animation, have you ever just felt like you're just like, I can do this. I can do this. This is where we're looking at. And you just really want to just take a nap. So some signs of fatigue. We're looking at this all the time. We're just wearing out. We're sad. We're helpless. We're irritable. I noticed that it doesn't take much some days to just really get our buttons pushed. And we're not the only ones that this is affecting. This is affecting our children as well. They mirror what we're doing, and they mirror what we're seeing. So they're feeling this just as much as we are as well. And so it's really important for us to help support them during this. We're worried. We're frustrated. So what, some other things that we'll notice. I love this squirrel. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I didn't have a to-do list, I don't know how I'd keep anything straight. And I get tired just trying to keep what I'm going to do. We either tend to eat or sleep more or less, depending on how we handle stress. Having trouble focusing and brain fog. I've literally for a long time thought that it was just having so much to do, but I noticed that it's fatigue that's keeping me from remembering a lot of things that I'm doing. And if we're forgetting, how can we expect our children to try and remember? We feel edgy or nervous. I have been feeling this way for a couple of weeks now, definitely that edgy and what's going on. And I finally just had to take a pandemic break. I literally put it on my to-do list that I would deal with anything pandemic on Tuesday. And I took the weekend off. I took yesterday off, except for the little bit that I did do for Andrew yesterday. But because I told you, give me a to-do or a deadline, or otherwise it won't get done. So yeah, we snap at or argue with others. This is really affecting our relationships. We're so tired that we're not just snapping at our children, we're snapping at our loved ones, at our husbands, at our coworkers, and we're just, things like this is affecting everybody. We have a lack of motivation. I literally did nothing this weekend but be responsible for myself and the dog, which if she barks, I apologize. She's ready to go out. It's like her walk time. We're unable to stop racing thoughts and we withdraw from others. And that's not good because that's also a sign of depression. And mental health is so huge. We brought it up earlier when Jen was talking about mental health, and somebody made it in the comment in the chats about reaching out to our mental health specialists. We need them. So here's some healthy ways to cope. Take care of your body. And that's not just the simple things that we think about, but if you need a nap, and I realize it's really hard to do when you're taking care of children all day, but take a break. It's all right to walk away and stuff. Just making sure that our children are in our safe place and stuff like that. Like when they're napping, it's all right for you to take a break as well. Exercise. That's a great way for children as well to help them with ways to cope, getting that energy out and getting that coping, trying to maintain being normal. And what we put in our body is so important as well, making sure that we're getting our protein. If we're not getting enough protein in the day and stuff, that affects our energy and saps our brain power as well. We should be starting every morning off with a decent amount of protein. I start mine off with a minimum of 20 grams every morning just to keep my brain going and moving. Accept your feelings. It's all right. We're all human and we're all in this together. So accept your feelings of whatever it is that you're feeling. It's healthy. And acknowledge that, because if you bury it, it's just going to come out in the most inopportune time, and you're going to sit back then, and then you're going to shut on yourself. Shouldn't have done that. I should have done this. I should have done something different. I should have. And then that just makes us feel even worse. Try positive self-talk. I'm not seeing anybody on here now that's from my counties. They were registered, but we've had some things going on in our county today that's been really heartbreaking, and so I can understand why they're not on anymore. But we everybody that has ever worked with me knows that I am the most positive person to be around, and I'm always looking for the opportunity. So what's the opportunity in this? And if you hear me, if I'm struggling or frustrated, and what's the opportunity in this? It's the opportunity to learn more patience, apparently, or it's the opportunity to figure out a different way to do. Lower our stress, and we're always trying to figure that out. But it could be something as simple as delegating it. I delegated the pandemic to today. It helped my stress tremendously until I got to today, but at least it helped me for a little while. Connecting with others. Like I said, we are so such sociable creatures. We need that connection with others. We need human touch. We need to have conversations. We're seeing this in our nursing homes where our elderly are not having that human contact with their loved ones, and it's huge. It goes the same with our children, and they're learning though that through things like FaceTime and actually having social dates and stuff like that, and playing at the park. What a great time to get out and enjoy the outdoors. And we are also, people are getting tired. And when I was doing my research, that flights have exponentially increased because people are like, I'm done. I need to go see my loved ones and my family. Just be precautious. That's all. Or cautious of what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You know what's best for you and your family. So remember that as you're doing. Limit news and social media. That is huge because it's full of so much negative. I don't even have a television anymore. I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news. I get my information through other sources and stuff like that. But it's really helped to decrease my energy leaks as to where I'm wasting my energy and bringing me down. Create new traditions. This has been something that has been a great thing that has come out of COVID, and I have loved it. And stuff that people are traveling more and they're doing more with their children. So there are been some good things that come out of it. But last and not least, and I absolutely love this, laugh until your belly hurts and then just a bit more, because laughter always raises our endorphins and makes us feel so much better. So you can't help but not laugh when a child giggles because they just are the cutest and stuff. But yeah, always make sure to laugh, even this, over the littlest things, and enjoy it because it's all there and so simple for us. So activities that we can do with children. I was doing some research and I missed this on the handout that I gave to Andrew yesterday. But some things that we could do to help children acknowledge their emotions and accept their emotions is doing things through emotion charades. Teach them and make it a game, and then they get interactive with it. There's also matching emotions, and we there for a while we actually had a magnetic thing that sat on the like on the refrigerator, and then children could put like this blue square on the emotion that they felt, and then you could explain that through to how the and teaching them about the different emotions that they have. Give them a hug. They need it just as much as we do. You can play Skittle or M&M emotions where you can identify the colors, like red is angry and green is happy and yellow is a, warning, and blue is happy and or ecstatic or whatever, and you can help them define that with that way. And then one of the things that I found was like your mood meter and how are you feeling. So on the top left-hand corner, you have like your uncomfortable and high energy is being furious, nervous, worried, and angry. Then you move down if you're uncomfortable and low energy, you're lonely, sad, hopeless, and dejected. If you're comfortable but low energy, you're at ease, content, calm, and serene. And if you're comfortable and high energy, you're cheerful, ecstatic, happy, and excited. So I learned, I found that on Pinterest. One of the things that if you go out, let me see if I can make this work. On Sesame Street, I don't know how many of you have heard about it. Did that pop up? Or are you seeing my activities, or are you seeing my Sesame Street?
We're seeing your slide, the activities to do with children.
All right, let me go like this. Boom, how about now?
Yeah, we're good.
So Sesame Street and communities.org created some great resources that we've asked, that we're sharing with all of our providers, and we're also sharing it with parents. When you first come in, and if you go to the link, and that is on the flyer that, or the one pager that I gave to Andrew that'll be going out, you can come in and you can look at it either from the provider perspective or from the parent perspective. And you can actually do a search. I did this earlier on COVID. It just popped. See if it'll let me do it. And it will pop up some different ways to talk to children about like going back to school, even though we're already in there. about children worrying and helping them through worrying and stuff, challenges and changes. Because obviously we know that the way life was before COVID is not going to return. It's going to be a new normal. And how that is, we don't know. So helping them through those changes. You know, eating well, moving, coping with sickness, because they're just as worried about getting sick as we are, because they pick that up from us. And like I said, they mirror what we're doing. So if you want them to change a behavior, change what you're portraying to them, because they're only mirroring back what you've been, how you're acting and what you're showing them and stuff. And then I wanted to show you here's one of the things that, and this is a download that you can get, but it's make a mood meter. And you could do this easy with like a paper plate, cut it in half, do a pin, not a push pin, but the little, brads, I want to call it, that you can fly it out and you punch a hole and fly it out. And that way then you've got your arrow, and then they can color and they can put their mood, make a space on that, and then they can use that. And that's, you know, especially for our littles that are even younger, you know, that are still learning their words and how to communicate their emotions, that might help them if you teach them and show them how to do their you know, their moods and stuff. And then you can go through and explain and have them explain to you why are they feeling like that? Why are they feeling sad? Why are they feeling happy? Or why are they just kind of you know, they're not happy or sad, they're just kind of there. And have them explain it to you. And that's a great social emotional tool that you're teaching them on how to work and move forward and stuff like that. So definitely a great thing to do there. And then, so that was where I got that mood meter. But if you do a search on Google or whatever on mood meters or how to help children cope, or, you know, using different things, you can find them in Pinterest, and Google was a great resource for me as well. And then the last one is, like I said, my contact information. I'm Michelle Sharp. I'm the Executive Director of the Early Childhood Council. My email is eclipse.sharp@gmail. Follow us on Facebook. We have a rather large following, and we have been posting a lot of stuff out there on all kinds of different resources and funding and things like that to help support all of our early childhood educators and where they're at right now. So if anybody's got any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle. If there are any questions, please utilize the chat. And then Michelle, if you wouldn't mind, would you go ahead and throw your Facebook link, the page to your Facebook, in the chat, as well as the 9 News link that you previously referenced in your presentation?
Sure, let me go. Get that. So the first is so that takes you to the coronavirus and COVID-19. It'll give you latest numbers, and that's where I got the numbers for the first part of it. And then I went in to that link. Things are looking pretty grim right now. And of course, 9 News is going to come up and give me volume.
The inevitable pop-up ad.
Oh yeah, and whatever it is that they're talking about and stuff. So I went into it, and then I which of course this is now about the. Things are looking pretty grim right now. In Colorado, the COVID-19 data
I think we got that 9 News link here. And then, yeah, if your Facebook here, and it doesn't have to be right now. But while we have you
You're good.
still, Michelle, real quick, one thing, I guess, over during, COVID-19, what is one thing with a, glass half full approach? What's one thing that excites you about the industry? Something you've seen within, childhood development centers in your community, a pivot that they've made because of COVID-19 that, has benefited their business, or something that we can take away from in that regard?
One of the great things are good, and because there are things like that, is um, how the state has really taken a different look at our early childhood providers and stuff, and employers and stuff like that are realizing how vital it is to have our providers. It's a trifecta. I can talk about it, talk about it, talk about it until I'm blue in the face, but it's a trifecta of you can't have employment without childcare or housing. And that's everywhere in the world as far as, making things happen and stuff, but especially in the US is how vital it came to the forefront, not just here in our own state, but nationally, about the importance of childcare providers and stuff. And so there's been a lot of change in funding coming down to help support our providers and what that looks like. So that's definitely a great thing that's come out of it. And then what was your second question? Sorry.
Yeah, just anything that you've seen specific centers in your area, any best practices that they've taken that you would recommend for the group?
The biggest thing, we did a training with the Denver's Early Childhood Council. We had a great resource, or a turnout of it. We had over 90 people show up from across the state actually attend the training. We provided it for free. And the 4 early childhood councils out here on the northeast corner collaborated to pay for it. And one of the things that really came out was how a lot of them are just really trying to maintain that normal. If a child needs a hug, give them a hug. And the children are picking up and learning things. Like one of our preschool teachers the other day was saying how, when they get their mats out for circle time or whatever, she's just, they've kind of figured it out that they have to be like arm's length away from each other, and they'll make a rearrange without calling each other out, or and making things happen and stuff like that. So they're really trying to just to a point maintain some normalcy while not like freaking out, because one of the things that we were concerned about was like kids wearing masks, or or their providers wearing masks, and for all this time they're not used to having a mask on, and now they're all seeing masks, and they're like, you can't really see who they are and stuff. And so just kind of making it normal and not talking a whole lot about the negative sides of things, but just being right there to support them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anybody else in the group that has any questions? If so, feel free to enter those in the chat now. It looks like Lisa says that they use Dinosaur School Social. It's an emotional curriculum through incredible years. And she says that it's been great to use with COVID concerns and dealing with emotions.
That's awesome. I've never heard of it, but if there's any resources, I think everybody's willing to look and try and do. And the more we learn, the more we can support our children.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and take the screen now, but thank you so much for your time. If there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and move on, but we'll be sure to include Michelle's email address if there are any questions here after today's meeting. Thanks again, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, so I'd like to just say thanks again to Michelle and Jen. Such great presentations that we've had tonight. And as we're moving forward, we are just going to talk about some wrap up, some next steps, and what to look forward to next week. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over. Oh, just a reminder again, please complete that survey Jen Negley has worked on making that open, so you should be able to access it. If you're having any more issues, please contact us and we'll make sure that you can access that.
There should be an email sent to them with the link.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so if you haven't received an email from Jen with that link, please let us know. Or if you're still having any issues, we'd love to be able to help you so we can make sure we get that market report specific for you. Next slide. So I'm going to pass it over to Jessie Esparza, who's going to give you a preview of what next week's going to look like, tell you a little bit about this financial analysis survey. Jessie, are you ready to take it over?
I'm ready, Lisa. Thanks a
All right.
lot. Looks like everybody's ready to get this day over with, I bet. So, but don't delay here because this is very important information. So I'm going to give you a little bit about, just the homework that I think you need to be prepared to work on. And actually, I don't like to call it homework. I like to call it prepare to be successful. So that is just something that we hope that you'll be doing for the next 4 weeks and beyond. So as Jen had told you that there'll be a survey link that she's going to send to you. What we would like for you to do specifically is to go through all of that information, and I'd say just continue to use the business model canvas, work with it, and put on those stickies and work with some of those components so that you can get used to some of those areas of the business model. And one of the things that I think that the target market information is really going to help you with is to help you actually begin to implement that more effectively. So the other thing I want to just throw out to you is do not delay in using other data sources. The census.gov, if you haven't used that, it is a great resource for you to go in and look at some of the data. It is a brand new website that is very, very good. And you can basically, if you go to the census.gov website and under the first tab, it's explore data. I'll send this to you in the chat. And then under data, there is a sub tab that is called exploring data. And it just kind of gives you an overview of the specific information that you can get. Census.gov will give you, even to your block, it gives you information about individuals that live around your block. That's how good it is. So anyway, that's another source of data that you can probably have available to you. In terms of some of the data that you're going to need, it's going to be the demographic data. It's going to be just tapping the factors that are going to be important to you, like probably just if you're an expansion childcare center, or if you're trying to maintain, or you're a brand new. I think those are all going to be variables that are going to be key to some of the data that you're going to need. So I would say that the other piece that is going to be critical in the next week is that the consultant that you've been assigned to will be contacting you, and you can discuss with them the business model canvas and some of the questions you have. There'll be some really quality one-on-one opportunities that you'll have with those individuals, and you can really get connected with some of the detailed information that you're going to be working on to prepare to be successful, and all of the data that you're going to get. So please, utilize them. They'll be contacting you through email, I'm sure, in the next week, and setting up appointments with you. So next week, we are going to work with the whole concept of the finances. And I know, I have been sending you the survey, and I'm appreciating that you're sending those back, because it's very important that I provide you some meaningful information that is relative to your needs. And I think it's really important in terms of that data that you send back, that I will have at least an opportunity to set up the presentation so that it's meaningful to you. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to look back at your data and of the financial data, and we're going to look to the future, look ahead, so that we're having the ability to help you at least establish a good revenue stream that you're going to need, which is going to also be all of those components that are going to give you the real value of being cost effective, and also those things that are going to have you to be prohibitive in terms of what you can or can't do. So that's important. And the data that you collect. I know some of you probably have accountants take care of the work for you in terms of your finances, but I think it's going to be important for you to have a good nucleus of information so that you have the control of what is happening at your center. So we're going to be talking about monthly cash flows. We're going to be talking about some of the carryover information that you're going to need on a month to month. So it's going to be cash flow, P&Ls, some of those things that I think still are business related. So we'll be hoping to provide you with some financial spreadsheets that you can work with, at least understand, and also break-even analysis. Some of those things I think are going to be important. So please return those surveys so that I can get some detail about how to be more effective with you. Okay, so again, I wanted just to kind of give you a real quick overview of that detailed information, and hopefully we will have you ready for next week. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jesse. We'll go ahead and go to that next slide. Just so you know, we have designed a few workshops specific for our attendees in the child care industry. So we do have a workshop coming up. It's social media masterclass. So if you would like a bit more information in the marketing department, specifically around social media, this is going to be a wonderful opportunity. This will be on December 8th. It's a Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. with Brian Cato from Fusion Vine. There's no charge for this, but you do need to register ahead of time, and you can do that at eastcoloradosbdc.com, just like you registered for this event tonight. So that will be one that we have coming up specific around social media for childcare businesses. To find out more classes that we have coming up, make sure to join our newsletter. You can text East Coast News to 22828 for latest updates on what's happening at SBDC, workshops, community events, local business news, and make sure to follow us on social. We post a lot of our events that we have coming up first on social before they're even released.
Lisa, and if anyone needs to do a startup session, or at least understanding all the components of startup, they can go to the webinar that we have online as well.
That's right. So we do have a webinar if you are looking to start a childcare business where you can get all of the details specific to startup, because we won't be covering that during this 4-week program. And that's why we're doing some spin-off classes, just because we won't have enough time during these 4 weeks. But if there's something that's not on our agenda or curriculum that you are interested in, make sure to reach out to us and we'll see what we can do to put something together for you. Or it's a great opportunity for you to learn more through your one-on-one consultation with your consultant. And our next session will be next week, next Tuesday, right here, from 6 to 8:30 in the evening. And just a reminder of what homework looks like for next week is you will be looking to work on that business model canvas and review it with your consultant. You'll want to bring financial statements to your next class, bring your CCAP and tuition rates to your next class, other revenue streams, age rates, etc. And we will welcome some really great information on finances next week, including the iron triangle. And I think that's our last slide, if I'm not wrong. We'll
Yeah,
go ahead and
that's
open it up
correct.
for any questions at this time, but you can look forward to an email in your inbox from your designated consultant.
And just so everyone knows, I will be putting the link for that financial survey in the chat right now.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night. We will be sending out those resources, the slide deck, the recording link to you after tonight's session. It may happen tomorrow. Yeah, but thank you so much for attending and look forward to seeing you next week.
Lisa, really quick, it's asking for permission again for that financial one again.
All right, thank you for letting us know. We will work on that and we'll send out a new link to you probably in the next day or so. So thanks for letting me know that. We'll get that fixed.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get that updated and sent out to you with the materials here from week 1. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, if there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and close out tonight's meeting. Thanks again for everyone joining and look forward to seeing you next Tuesday night.
Andrew, they are wondering if they have access to the chat box.
Yes, they do. Or this chat box,
Yes.
excuse me.
I think they're wanting to pull links off of this chat box.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's fine. No problem. I will go ahead and then just keep this open. Feel free to close off as you'd like. I'll keep this open and you can go back through the chat and take any information that you might need.
The other thing we can do is pull that information from the chat box, include it in the follow-up email. That may be easier so people don't have to scroll through conversation.
That's a great idea. I'm more than happy to pull those links and include that information in the email that goes out to everyone. Wonderful. So with that being said, I will go ahead and close out today's session. Thank you everyone for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you all back here on Tuesday.